Welcome back into another episode of the Paul Barron podcast. Today, I'm going to look at privacy and dive a little deeper because this to me is one of the cornerstones that we in the industry, when you think about crypto and blockchain in general, will be facing over the next few years, especially with all of the things that the SEC, the CFTC have done this week, and then likely all the things that our lawmakers, Congress is going to be doing in the next few months in passing the Clarity Act. So it's going to be a good one. I will have a guest on today, and that is going to be Sid Gandhi, who is the CEO of Payy, Payy. He's a former Apple privacy engineer as well. And that's really what we're going to dive into is the privacy sector. Why does this matter? Should you be concerned with it? And is it going to be something that is an absolute for you to get into crypto if you're brand new? So we'll dive into that. Always ask that you guys make sure to like and subscribe, do all that good stuff. And remember, if you have ideas for the show, we do love to read the comments, but you can also reach out to us, which is just producer@revernetworks.com. If you have an inside tip or something, our producers are always looking for great topics and great people. So do that. Let's just get right into it today.
I want to take a minute, guys, and just invite you to join the Barron Market Edge private member group. You guys can do that by just clicking the link down in our description. This is your insider's edge to the AI and crypto money revolution, which is what we really focus on here on PBN. This is additional research that I do along with our team. We have a pretty significant team on our research around not only what guides our episodes, but a lot of that research gets built into more content that I drop here on the Barron Market Edge. We do market trends and sentiment analysis, which can be anything from tokens to all sorts of strategies. This, of course, will also guide you over to our Telegram group, and we give this as elite community access. You get bonus content over there, including tax guides, as well as different kinds of asset guides out there that we drop all the time. This is your 10-year vision in action. All you have to do, of course, is just hit that little subscribe button or join the community and get in on it. It's absolutely free. It doesn't cost you a thing, so check it out.
Sid, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. So let's get into a little bit of narrative here. Privacy, as we all know, at least on blockchain, is kind of a glass house model. It has been forever. And, many people will say that's not a feature, it's actually a bug. And some would say, well, this is one of those things that eventually will be worked out. Only problem is we haven't really seen a full solution for it to be worked out just yet. So tell me a little bit about what you are doing at Payy to kind of manage that.
Yeah, I think Glasshouse is the best way to describe it. I mean, every transaction on the blockchain today is fully public. The sending
Yeah.
address, the receiving address, the token you're using, the amount. And for a long time, most people thought the fact that it's pseudonymous, meaning the blockchain address is just a random string
Yep.
of numbers, is enough to keep the identity of the person that's behind that blockchain address private or detached from that.
Mhm.
The problem is with advances in data analysis and AI today, it's actually trivial to trace back that pseudonymous blockchain address using
Yeah.
signals like your IP address, maybe somewhere you've connected your wallet, and then you've also entered your email address.
Yeah.
Happens all the time when a DApp asks you to send an email or something for notifications. Every time that happens, you're leaking data, and over time, that builds a profile. Look,
Interesting.
we saw this thing play out already in Web 2.
Yep.
Right? For a long time, we were giving our data to Google and Apple without really knowing we were doing that. And it turns out, well, they were using it for, bad things. It turns out a lot of that data was being used to manipulate elections, for example. And there were all these laws that came out, and we see the same exact thing happening in crypto right now. There are people that are collecting this data, they're analyzing this data. And by and far, I think users are unaware that this is happening. I think there's a narrative around privacy coins, but the
Yeah.
problem is those are kind of just tokens that people are holding and hoping those tokens go up in value. But really what on-chain economy is going to be built on top of is stable coins. And there is every single stable coin today, USDC, USDT, Every transaction of both of those stablecoins is fully public, fully analyzable, and exploitable. I'll go into a little bit more detail about like what that means later, but it's pretty bad. It's a big problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the thing. I'm looking at your website here. Well, for everybody that's watching, this is not an advertiser, it's not a paid deal. We asked them in to talk about this because we're truly interested in security and also privacy. Nor do we advocate for any company that comes on our show. We don't say, "Hey, we think this is a good product," because we just don't know enough, so, which is why we bring them on. When you look at the Pay network, you've got a little bit of everything here. You've got ZK proofs, EVM compatibility, so this is all ETH. Then you have the Pay card. Are you in partnership with MasterCard or Visa, or what? How's that work?
Yeah, with Visa. So we
Okay.
were the first ones to issue a non-custodial stablecoin card with Visa that
Okay.
had privacy built in. So
Is there
every
KYC on this card?
there is, and so I
Okay.
want to make a distinction here. Everything that we do is fully regulated. This is not a way to get around regulations.
Yeah.
This is privacy, not in service of hiding, but in service of safety
Of
and in
privacy.
service of security.
Yeah, of privacy. In service of privacy. That's
Yeah.
exactly nobody needs to know what you're spending on or what vendors you're paying or what companies and people you're hiring. That is privacy. And you're right. That is a problem, which is why we're extremely protective of our wallet addresses because of the fact that we know once that address is picked up, you can immediately start piecing this together. And AI has done a a very good job at being able to add more tools to that, and I can only imagine what someone like a Palantir is gonna be able to do with this. So
Already doing.
yeah,
So,
already doing, yeah.
and the worst part is, it's Web 2 data is a little bit different because that's the way our mindset is. Where like you can like switch email addresses and then maybe like your past can't be connected. The
Right.
problem with crypto is that every transaction exists forever. So
Yep,
anytime and something is exposed, your wallet address is accidentally exposed when you're screen sharing or something, every
exactly.
single past transaction is permanently visible to
Immediately
everyone.
goes out, yeah.
That's just not something that like our minds are ready to comprehend. Like we're not built that way to
How do
understand
you
what that
think
even means.
how do you think the banking industry is going to deal with this? Because clearly we're dealing with a situation right now, and as you know, I'm sure what's going on with the Clarity Act. The banks are pushing back on stablecoin yields, but I think they might be pushing back on stablecoins in general until they have a model, which whether it's a JPM coin or Bank of America coin or whatever stable coin they end up launching, because there's going to be a slew of them, kind of what PayPal did. How do you think they are going to ensure privacy works? Obviously, they've already started to go into ZK rollups and proofs to build in infrastructure for this. Is that the model?
Yeah, look, I think there's two angles to this. One is, how do they protect their business model of taking people's deposits and earning the yield on it? I think that's going to be challenging given that yield is now being democratized
Yeah.
on chain. So, in many ways, they're going to have to rethink that model. But on the other side, it's like, which technology makes sense for us to actually adopt? And for a long time, it was like banks are not working with public blockchains like Ethereum or Solana. And suddenly you see this flip where they are now. Now the problem is, and we're talking to a few banks as well at Pay. The problem they're all coming to us with is, hey, we actually, if we tokenize our deposits, for example, like JP Morgan is doing, there's other banks doing this as well. If we do that now, all of a sudden everyone can see how many, what the value of our tokenized deposits.
Yeah.
They can see the holders of those tokenized deposits. And by the way, over 1 billion blockchain addresses have already been linked to the real world entity behind them. So that might be a person, it might be a company, it might be a
A
fund.
billion?
1 billion
How
blockchain
are you
addresses.
quantifying that data?
You can do the research. There's a couple different blockchain analysis companies. I'll mention a few of them. So it's Chainalysis, probably everyone knows about them.
Yep.
TRM Labs, Elliptic, Nansen, and their job is to
Do that.
essentially
Yeah.
find out who's behind particular blockchain addresses,
Yeah.
and then identify whether they're, quote unquote good actors or bad actors, or what the risk score associated with those addresses is, things like that. And then they sell those services to others, which is a really important service in this ecosystem. But as part of that, they're looking at and essentially revealing who these people are that are holding these assets.
Do you think that we are set for, you know, kind of a come to Jesus point in the industry where everybody realizes the emperor has no clothes? In the sense that, "Oh, shit, yeah, privacy is a problem. We just opened this up to the entire banking system, the entire securities system, and the entire now, real world asset system." So, even commodities now with the most recent ones, where, Selig and Paul Adams, they were talking about this kind of transition that we're dealing, or Atkins, they were talking about this transition that we're dealing with. I think they pulled out 16 assets, but said there could be hundreds, that are all commodities, all of which are blockchain entities. So that kind of technology is already being traced and managed right now. What I mean, I just think that if when people realize this, do you think we're going to see major Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies at all interested to go this direction without the privacy layer being in place?
Can tell you right now, with the conversations we're having and the conversations we're having with our partners, uh, privacy is a major barrier
Yeah.
when they're doing their due diligence. And look, there's been a lot of this institutional adoption news over the past year, 2 years. The thing is, it's all like they're barely dipping their toes in the water. All of these banks, a lot of these enterprises, and they're still testing. This is still a testing grounds for like, how does this whole system work?
Yeah.
They're testing, hey, is the government okay with this? A few court cases have to happen challenging some of these things. So it'll
Right.
take many years for the for you know banks to put like their full deposits on chain, or like run everything on a blockchain. And so what I mean to say by this is, right now, for a long time, they were stuck on regulation. They were stuck on this
Yeah.
idea that the US government does not want us to use blockchains. Therefore, like, we're not going to touch it because we're not going to risk our banking licenses or whatever other licenses we have to operate. It's just not worth it. Now we're crossing that hurdle. And the next hurdle is becoming a very practical question of, wait a minute, like, everything's publicly visible. Like, that's not okay. That's not how we operate as a bank. Like, there are financial confidentiality laws.
100%.
Even GDPR, you're not allowed to expose financial data
Right.
publicly. That's illegal, and you can be fined for that. And yet, if a company is using stablecoins today, they are putting financial data on chain. They're
Yep.
relying on the fact that maybe you can't link the blockchain address to a person. But if you can, now it becomes a pretty big data
Yeah.
privacy problem that would be
Now, and let's
illegal.
let's be clear. Some projects and some things out there, they want full transparency, because of for whatever it might be. I could see, you know, especially a nonprofit, this would be a really good thing because you want as much of that information completely transparent as a nonprofit. Those kind of entities, I can see that, and maybe even to certain areas if you're tokenizing certain things. Let's call it loyalty rewards or, some of those kind of components that may have some narrative behind it for transparency. True. Otherwise, you're ending up with a lot of these loyalty problems that we're dealing with now, where loyalty points are being basically remodeled. I should say, how better term for it is inflationary reduction. So those kind of things I think are real. Explain to our audience a ZK proof. So because this is really ZK proofs have been around. We've talked about this on the show quite a bit. And it's important because this is kind of the insulation layer that helps you with privacy. Explain it for a person who's just getting into blockchain.
Yeah, I like using this analogy of Where's Waldo. Remember those books where you like this
Yep.
detailed pictures, you try to find a
Yep.
particular person in them. If I found Waldo on a page, and I want to prove to you that I've found Waldo, but I
Yep.
don't want you to know where he is in the picture, how do I do that? And so you can construct a thought experiment where you take a blank piece of paper and you cut a very small hole in it. And I position that paper on top of the book. And all you can see through that hole is where Waldo is. Right. So what do
Okay.
you know? You know that I know
I
where
got you.
Waldo is, but you don't
Yeah.
know where Waldo is in the picture. If I close the book, remove that paper and give it back, you won't be able to find him. So it's a very rough way of saying, how do you prove something without revealing all of the data
Yeah.
that's required to basically know everything about that proof? And so what a ZK proof does is essentially at a blockchain level allows you to say, I have built this next block or I have done this transaction according to all the rules of the blockchain. For example, I'm not double spending. Now, I'm not spending more than I actually have in balance. There's basic rules of money
Yep.
that a blockchain enforces. I can prove that that happened without revealing my balance, without revealing who I'm sending it to. And that basically allows you to get privacy that's also verifiable publicly. So if you think about privacy today in your bank account or your credit card, that data is somewhere, but it's not revealed publicly, but it's revealed to a bank, maybe some marketing
Yeah.
agencies, whoever they sell that data to. Um, in in the way we're building it at Pay, what happens is the transaction is visible to no one except for you, and you prove to the public that you followed the rules of the blockchain, and therefore your transaction is valid.
So this is a self-custody solution that I guess kind of feels like a banking app.
That's what we've aimed to build. So 3 years ago, we launched Pay Wallet, and today we have over 100,000 users, and is the most widely used stablecoin payments product that has privacy. And it's the only one with a stablecoin card that has privacy. And so our whole model was, can you build a bank, a neobank type interface for crypto
Right.
with privacy built in? Because that's the only way this is going to scale.
So, okay, so it's compliance versus surveillance, I guess, in a way. You're still there, but you're not being surveilled upon. And that is a concern because surveillance is a huge issue, especially with the AML KYC requirements that are now getting more and more integrated. Now you have, some of the banking laws that are seeping into the Clarity Act. This is going to be an issue, I think, at some point. But I've never seen okay, so a non-custodial Visa. So break down how a card can talk to a decentralized wallet in real time.
Yeah, it's very complicated, but I'll give you the high level. Essentially, when you tap your card at a terminal to buy something,
Yeah.
there is an authorization call that goes via a few different servers, and that authorization call actually hits our blockchain on the Pay card. And when it hits the blockchain, it creates a blockchain transaction that reserves those funds. Let's say you bought something for $10. It checks whether you have $10 in your balance. And it does that via a ZK proof. So you basically prove I have enough funds, not exactly how many funds I have. And
Interesting.
that then if that returns yes, then those funds are locked. So you can't spend them again on the blockchain.
Yep.
And then that is returned back through Visa to the merchant. And then eventually that's settled.
Yeah, and essentially you're doing it through the Visa merchant network. So essentially you're spending USDC. Can you do other assets other than USDC?
It's possible. We haven't integrated those yet, but our users definitely want things like EuroC
Yeah.
in Europe and others as well.
What about like RLUSD? Have you done anything with Ripple yet?
No, we haven't. And actually, we did something interesting. We said, do people care which stablecoin they're using? And if you ask most users, they actually don't, and they don't even know most of the time.
I think over time it will be less important. Yes, I agree with you.
But I think the thing is, different stablecoins are building different brands, right? So
Yeah.
RLUSD has a particular brand, USDC has a particular brand, USDT has a particular brand, and like we're in the business of like letting people use what they want, and so you can actually deposit multiple different tokens, and we'll actually we what we do is we make it easy for the user because we remove the actual token. They can hold whatever token they want, but it just says dollar,
Right.
right? And so for the user, it becomes very easy, but they can choose to use a particular deposit a particular token if they want.
Okay. All right. So stablecoins, as I guess, as a bridge, really. So why would, say, a USD pegged asset? Because this feels like it would be more of a Trojan horse for privacy preserving self sovereignty in a way. Would you agree or no?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what like our end goal is, right? And so like our end goal is just to fix this obviously broken on-chain
Yeah.
infrastructure for money. Um, and that's why we believe in privacy from this perspective of like everyone else doesn't need to know what you're spending.
Right.
But we also believe in compliance, and we believe in making sure that like our Visa card, for example, is fully compliant with U.S. laws and how Visa network works. And so, yeah, I mean, Trojan horse is a bit interesting because it means like we have some agenda maybe behind the scenes. We really don't. We just want to continue to build this financial infrastructure with blockchains that just makes finance and money super easy and efficient for people.
Any plan for, staking or yield or any of those kinds of things that can be integrated? We've started to see some wallets that have these pay mechanisms built into them. I know MetaMask has come out with one, Tangent has one, where they have very fractional yield. Like right now, I think on Tangent, their yield is on USDC is less than 2%. So that's, it's obviously being rounded through. It just keeps you from having to go park it somewhere else where you're getting 3 or 4, and you're giving up that, for the, basically convenience. Are you guys doing that?
Yield has been the number one requested feature from our
Sure.
users. So yes, that is something that's very
Okay.
important.
What about loans?
Loans are interesting. So traditionally in crypto, we've only had collateralized loans.
Yeah.
You basically put up, let's say, BTC, you borrow USDC, and that's really only for trading and leverage. What traditional consumers want is under collateralized
Yeah.
loans, like you have
Yep.
on your credit card, for example.
Yep.
That is really challenging to build on the blockchain because the whole credit system relies on the fact that you
Well,
can.
I'm talking about if this could be at some point a full self-custody wallet that
Yeah.
would have a Bitcoin or an ETH in it, or I mean, uh, XRP just went live on Coinbase today to where you can take loans against
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I
how
think
would
it's really powerful to have this collateralized loan, like you just mentioned on Coinbase. I think a lot of people are using it to keep that upside of XRP and to keep holding that, but then they have expenses that they want to spend that
yeah.
money on, so it totally makes sense.
So let's talk about the future of digital sovereignty. This is one of the biggest areas for me. Um, and the reason I took your interview was because, you with Apple, privacy engineer, I understood that. My career began with Microsoft, and I was in the era of where, do you know what a Clipper chip is?
A Clipper chip?
Yeah,
I don't know, should I?
you should. Yeah, that that was the original spying device that went into hardware.
Oh, it's like a
Largely,
skimmer. It's like skimming
yeah, kind
people's
of,
cards
but
or
it was done by
something.
the government. So, a little different there. In fact, it was one of the reasons I left Silicon Valley because I just had a problem with the Clipper chip networks and architecture being integrated into hardware, which essentially spied on email and basically anything you can imagine on your phone. Okay. And when I left Microsoft, that was one of my biggest concerns. And it's always been a lifelong issue with me is privacy, especially to people who don't understand that they're giving it up. That's what really kind of gets me really twisted. And I got away from it because it was once I saw that this was happening, because we had 3-letter agencies inside our development teams during this era. And when we realize, and of course, as an engineer, you don't realize it till it's too late and all the tech has been done. And then you realize, wait a minute, what did I just do here? So you know what I'm talking about. So the future of digital sovereignty, if let's say that you are building a stack, a sovereignty stack, and you guys are doing it, I guess, with decentralized identity in a way. What all are you building that would kind of apply to a sovereignty stack? Somebody trying to build a digital sovereignty stack. For me, it's self custody, it's privacy, it's here's my exchanges that I have selected that are secure. They've got great, obviously great custody platforms. What are you guys doing around that?
Yeah, I mean, the very simple way I like to put it is we're just building digital cash the way Bitcoin always wanted to be,
Yeah.
right? The original white paper of Bitcoin was peer to peer electronic cash. And Bitcoin eventually found product market fit as digital gold rather than cash or a
Right.
payment device, right? So then we got stable coins. So now we have stability in the currency and we got a little bit closer to money. And what we're adding is privacy, which brings us a little bit more closer to digital cash. And then the last thing was kind of like access and usability. Like, how easy is it to go somewhere and make a payment
Right.
with crypto? Today it was like traditionally very difficult. But now that we've added the Visa card, we've solved that last mile problem as well. So now you have stability, you have privacy, and you have access. And that's basically the full stack.
Yeah. Can this wallet or card attach to other wallets?
We built the wallet ourselves right now, but you can use other wallets to like deposit funds into your pay card. Yeah.
Okay, so that's more of a transaction though. But is it
Yeah.
instantaneous just like crypto? If I send $100 in USDC to my pay card or wallet, $100 in USDC, it's there in, 10 minutes or 5 minutes or 3 minutes, whatever the transaction layer is.
Yeah. Basically, whatever the block time of where you're sending it from
Okay,
is,
so
like, yeah, it's,
immediacy as terms
yeah.
of availability.
Yep.
Okay. And this is a debit card or because this can't be a credit card or can it?
Yeah. So it's called a secured credit card, which means it essentially operates like a debit card, like a credit card. The credit that's extended to you is exactly the amount that you have in your balance. Um,
So,
and
okay,
so,
well, if
yeah,
someone had $100 in there
yeah,
and they go out and they make $103 purchase, they're going to get a decline, right?
yep. It just won't
Okay.
go through.
Just like normal.
Yep.
And then as far as the transaction, where are the fees made on this for you guys?
Yeah. So we actually built PayCard as the lowest cost crypto card out there because we actually don't make money on that. That's kind of like think about Robinhood, like charging $0 for trading. That's
Yep.
the way we grow. That's the way we get our user base.
Okay.
Now we're actually zooming out to providing a blockchain layer for enterprises. And so what we're seeing now is like banks that want to come on chain with tokenized assets, other neobanks that want to build, they're building on our infrastructure, and
Uh-huh.
that's how we make money.
Okay. Okay. I didn't understand that. You make money by the banks paying you, or you make money on the card as a member, you get a fee annually, or how where is
No,
because you're not
so
getting part of the transaction.
no, we don't make money on the cart. So on the consumer product that we built, we don't charge fees and we don't make money. That's the loss leader for our enterprise and B2B business.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. So interesting. So can this be white labeled to a bank or someone like that? Can banks
Exactly.
could do this, right?
Exactly. So a few months ago, we basically announced that we're taking all this infrastructure that we built to power the pay card and we're opening that up and we're calling it Pay
Okay.
Network. And that's something that anyone can build on top of.
Right. Well, one thing, Sid, that you have to be aware of, and I mean, how long you been in crypto?
2012 was when
Oh,
I
okay. So
first bought
you've
my
seen
Bitcoin. Yeah.
you've seen it all. All right. So then you saw what happened with Mashinsky. You saw what happened with Voyager in the last major, run in. And anytime people are putting assets into something like this, now granted, you guys aren't, giving these grandiose, fees that, oh, you're going to get 10%, back on your whatever asset you're putting in here. But it is a concern right now on everybody. Everybody is hyper, concerned about rug pulls, like where's this company going to be tomorrow? That kind of thing. How are you ensuring to users that you guys are here for the long haul?
Yeah, look, I mean, trust is built over time. Trust is built by delivering what you say you're going to deliver.
Yeah.
And for the last 4 years, we've been working on the same exact problem, which is how do we bring financial privacy back to the blockchain? We've shipped products that have been working, that have like tens of thousands of users that are using it every day.
Yeah.
We're doing over 100 million in transaction volume every year. And literally, if you ask our users, like almost no problems in our
Yeah.
product. And so we
They
have a
just
very
love it.
high bar, but really it builds up over time. And now we have like diehard Pay users that use Pay as their primary bank account and as their primary
Any
card.
rewards on this program yet?
So we've actually stayed away from trying to do the traditional crypto like incentives rewards
Yeah.
game because like you mentioned, it actually cheapens the product a little bit and it
Sometimes.
makes the
Yeah.
product feel a little bit more like it could be a rug pull or it's not there for the long term, it's there for like
Yeah.
that short term pump. And so no, we have not integrated rewards or token or points or things like that on the card. That's not to say we won't do that in the future, but we want to build a really solid product first.
Yeah.
And I think we've done that and we've delivered that to our users.
Well, and I think the key here is, when you look in this kind of component right here, do you have to have custody partners at all? What would be your model as far as your stack is concerned of companies that you're working with?
Yep. So Pay is fully self-custodial.
Okay.
So at no point are your funds, in a place where like someone can freeze them. Your funds basically can never be frozen. You always have
Yeah.
access to them. You can export your seed phrase and all the good stuff that
Right.
comes along with that. But for on and off ramping, for
Yeah.
example, from fiat into crypto, we do have partners, and so we work with regulated partners across multiple geographies to handle that.
How does that work in the US?
In the US, we have a couple different partners. We don't publicly state which partners. We use different ones under the hood. But essentially, you can send a ACH transfer from your bank account, and those funds will automatically end up in your Pay wallet.
Can I reverse that?
Can you reverse the ACH?
Yeah, well, can I take funds that are in my Pay wallet
Oh,
and ACH it into a bank?
yes.
Okay. All right. So in essence, then does this have an account number and like an ABA number?
Yep. So this feature is
It's like a checking account.
yeah. So this feature is in beta right now, but essentially, yes, you have essentially what we call a virtual account,
Mhm.
like a virtual USD account, and so you can
Okay.
use it as like a regular bank account.
I see. Any features, obviously, I'm sure you're aware of Apple Pay's feature where you can generate a new card number immediately in the app. Okay. For security purposes, it's not a big deal. You just want to clear your subscriptions. You don't know how many you have
Right.
and subscribe to the right ones. Is that available in this program to where you
Yeah.
can do
So
that?
you can regenerate card numbers. It's funny that you bring up the Apple Pay example because Apple Pay actually, when they launched, they actually innovated on the privacy model here, where every time you tap, that you actually generate a new card number, so the
Right.
merchant can never
Can't use
get
it
your
again.
card details. Yeah, they
Yeah,
can, even if there's a skimmer or like whatever, right? They're
exactly.
reusing card, they can't do it. And that's kind of the model we applied to the blockchain using ZK. And
Okay.
so when you have these like rotating addresses and you have the ability to obfuscate kind of the original balance holding address, that's when you get this Apple style privacy. And Apple's not, trying to help like hide everything. They're trying to
Yeah.
make sure that using their products is a safe thing.
Well, safe and almost fraud free. I use Apple cards all the time. I have never had a fraud attempt on
Right.
that card.
Yeah.
Never. And if
Yeah.
I can't say that about any other card that has never had a fraud attempt. So it works, I think, when you have those kind of components right there. So, all right, so back to the point of building a sovereignty stack. Pay could be one of the things, guys, as you're listening, you know that what I try to do is put together a whole solution product set of if you want to be a self-sovereign individual, what are the things you can use to get out there and do it? I'm not approving Pay on my list yet, but I'm just saying it's one I'm going to look at, based on what we've had here, Sid. That's number one. Obviously, Tangent is the one I like for self custody. There are a handful of other products out there. As you guys know, I talk about. I don't endorse any products, but I talk about what I use, and I'm like I try to break everything, and try to break it in ways most people don't think about. So hopefully, it has solved that problem. But I think as we get into more privacy, which is the biggest issue right now, self sovereignty at this level is going to become a big, big deal, I think, for every customer and consumer out there, coming very soon to you. So when I go on and I get a card, it's traditional KYC, but there's no credit check. You don't pull a credit check because this is a debit card.
That's correct. There's no
Yeah.
credit check.
So it's just here's my information. Is there any way that you create ID validation to where you can get into, a lot of these banking requirements?
Yep. So we do validate the IDs. We
What
run.
do you use on your ID validation?
We use a couple different partners for that as well, but they're the standard partners that pretty much
Okay,
everyone
so
uses
like
across the industry.
yeah, and I think for all of you guys know what I'm talking about, where it's like, hey, scan your credit or your passport or your state ID or real ID as is called now, and then it links you out to a website that's usually someone else, that not the company,
Yeah.
that authenticates it, into the state databases. So
Yeah.
very interesting because that, of course, to me would be the first connection of an ID to that card. How
And
is
that's
that
yeah,
data
that's so
secured?
that's the problem, right? So whenever you do this for any other crypto card,
Yeah,
you have basically connected your ID to your blockchain address, which
exactly.
means now if you go on an explorer or you go on a blockchain
Exactly.
analytics tool, you can look that up. In Pay, your KYC data is never connected to your on-chain balance. That's the key. That's the privacy and
I see.
compliance
Okay.
together. And so we break that link using ZK. And so while we can identify that, you're legit, you've scanned your ID and you're abiding by those regulations that we have
Right.
to issue a Visa card, we can also then detach that ID from your blockchain identity. That's
Yeah.
the key innovation that we had at Pay.
Yeah. So are you guys considered a neobank or what would you be classified as?
Yep. So the Pay wallet, I would consider a neobank. Send, receive money. You have, fiat to crypto stuff. You have the card, and a lot of people do use it as their main bank account.
Yeah.
Um, Now, when we look at the infrastructure that we're building with Pay Network, I would consider that like financial infrastructure or blockchain rails
Yeah.
for B2B and for enterprise.
Interesting stuff out there. Well, we're going to continue some research here. We're trying to build the perfect self-sovereignty stack this year, especially as clarity comes through. So we'll have more companies like Pay on and, because we want to dive into this. A lot of the tools and products that are going to be launching just in the next, I think, year, we're going to see so much new stuff because of how, regulation is changing. Now, I think the demographic is changing because you've got a lot of people who have been in crypto for like you, a decade or more, and they understand it. And then you have the young kids, the alphas and the Gen Zs right now that are constantly. I've got two kids that are in that classification, that's all they invest in is crypto, and that's how they move money to their friends is in crypto, which is crazy, to see kids doing that. I love it though. But privacy is a key there. So we'll leave a network. It's just PAYY.network if you guys want to visit more about Pay and go on there. Sid, I'll get you back on as we get our privacy stack. I want to see more products out of you, though, because to me, this is a good product, or it looks like it's a good product, but you know, no yield. I'm concerned about that. Uh, Granted, you can move in and out of it and just use it as a needed ad hoc card. Sure, that would be one solution. Any bill pay or anything like that involved in this?
Yeah, so you're kind of not talking about like how do I bring more of my banking use cases? Like how
Exactly.
do I
Yes.
eventually like close my bank account
Oh
and
man,
like fully bank on
hallelujah.
chain? Right. Like that's the dream. And that's exactly what we're working towards.
Yeah.
And so the US banking integration that we've done, we're doing the same in Europe and in other countries. So you'll be able
Yeah.
to do bill
Do
pay
you
from
think that the
that.
banks though are going to implement ZK so they can get to a T plus zero? Is it, example, and I talked about this the other day on the show. I've been with a big bank for a long time, and they held a transaction between one big bank and another big bank for 12 days. How do you do when both banks can see what's going on in the other bank and you're holding a transaction for 12 days? That is that's highway robbery. Imagine.
I mean, I think look, like not I don't think we can poo-poo the existing financial system, right? Like that has resulted in the progress that we've
Yeah.
seen across the world and in developed economies as well. I think in this particular case, right, that sounds like some kind of bureaucratic issue where like maybe they held it because there was some fraud trigger or some
Well,
risk
the
trigger
only
that came up.
trigger that it was it, it meets that daily transfer. It met that daily transfer
Limits.
limit requirement, which is like, why does it matter? If
Yeah.
you're moving it, it doesn't matter. If you're signing off on that 10K thing or greater, transaction that has to be gone through FinCEN and all that BS that's, in the banking requirements. What does it matter? It's still the same transactions. Why do you have to pin that down for 12 days? That to me is what's going to kill the banks is this time elasticity on transactions for whatever it might be. Sometimes it's less than that, but that's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think the nuance is like, look, banks have that, and then crypto has like instant settlement, right? And like
Yeah.
crypto, however, because of instant settlement, has been like riddled with like scams and like
No
these
doubt. No
centralized
doubt.
exchanges scams because if they can hack into your Coinbase, which is like
Mhm.
happens all the time apparently with the news that
Yeah.
we've been seeing, like over 100 million like accounts or like 50 million accounts or something, and then they transfer those funds out from your Coinbase account to the blockchain, they got it. They're gone,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
That's irreversible. And so then
Unless
it's
that
like,
blockchain address has been ID'd to a person, someone's person
right.
situations. But
But I mean, yeah, so like
I mean, because you have
the
guys, there's a lot of crypto sleuths out there that have
yeah,
been able to track this stuff down,
yeah,
and you can analyze pretty quickly. Because the problem is the off ramps. At some point you got to off ramp this into fiat somewhere around the world. You're off ramping.
yeah.
So who's laundering that is the question mark. Because that's what's happening. So I get it. I understand completely what you guys are trying to do, which is a very good thing. I think this is a product that's needed in the space when you look at privacy first stablecoin usage. You guys might get bigger here. I think if once that people understand it, they have to
I think it's
understand that
happening. Yeah, I
there's
think it's
risk.
happening right now. And really it's about like how do you make it so easy that it's just like, hey, like you can close your bank account or you can move your funds over very easily and everything just kind of works. But you
Yeah,
get this extra superpower that it's self-custodial and it can't be frozen and
yeah.
things happen faster. So I think it's happening. It's never gonna be
How
like
can it
one day
not be
everyone wakes up
frozen?
and
Okay, wait a minute. Let's go
yeah,
down that pipe. Uh, how can it not be frozen? Because we already know that Tether and USDC can be frozen. We've seen it happen. So
yeah.
how can this not be frozen?
Yeah, that's a good point. So I think the more nuanced point is yes, you can freeze USDC and USDT because their smart contracts allow you to do that, but they don't target individuals and they don't target
Okay.
like they don't they don't
Yeah.
one-off target people. They only do it when law enforcement is involved.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that makes, yeah, because
And
it's,
so, like, but if you talk about it, the self-sovereign stack that you're talking about, then
Mhm.
you wouldn't use a stable coin that has these freeze functionalities. So you would use other
Exactly.
stable coins that don't have those regulatory freeze functionalities if you
Right.
wanted to be like fully
Well,
self-sovereign.
that's risk though. That's a risk tolerance that many people don't want to live with. They like USDC or they like, I mean, I get it. And, the US stable coins are all going to have this capacity. But once you start to move out of that capacity, whether it's, you know, I don't know, with Tether and Tether native is not a US stablecoin. So, but what is it? USAT, I think is their new one for USAT. Yeah, for Tether's, American authorized stablecoin. So that one is falls right into the Genius Act requirements, which is the point we're getting at there. But anyway, all right, Sid, thank you so much for coming in today. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
You bet. All right. Take care. All right, guys, you know what to do. If you have not liked and subscribed on this video, make sure and do that. And let me know also in the comments. And you know, you can also DM me out on Twitter as well. Just hit me up on topics that you think are perfect for this self-sovereign stack that we're trying to build this year. We're putting together products and services. We're bundle it up, and it's going to be free for you guys to use. We're not endorsing anybody, so don't think that we're endorsing them. We have tested them to the best that we can. Everybody's going to be different. And then let me know how it works out for you guys. All right. We'll catch you next time right here on the Paul Barron podcast. Take care.